Funnily enough, I personally practice intermittent fasting and it's changed my mental clarity and energy levels on another level. Cutting sugar has also been a massive game changer for me. I haven't tried a 72-hour fast yet though, but I'll keep you updated. Do your own research though before jumping into anything like this. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button and subscribe for more daily content. Also, sharing the video helps us grow the family, so if you don't mind, give that one a hit too. But for now, stay safe, stay well, and stay curious. Until next time. All reactions in these videos are for entertainment purposes only. Any advice given should be treated as entertainment as well. Viewers are responsible for conducting their own research into any subjects discussed in the videos before taking any action based on the information provided.